You're watching HuffPost Live. I'm Ricky Camilleri. And how much do you spend each day? Between food, drinks, transportation, and healthcare, it's probably a whole lot more than $1.50. But believe it or not, there are 12 billion people currently living in extreme poverty, which is on that very same amount. That's why the Global Poverty Project is asking those more fortunate to live below the line, to raise awareness about the lack of choice and opportunity so many face around the world. And I'm honored to be joined by Hugh Evans, the CEO of the Global Poverty Project, and celebrity Live Below the Line participants, actress Bridget Moynahan and actress Bonnie Wright. Guys, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Very much.
And for doing this, obviously. This is incredible, this choice that you're making.
Thank you. Yeah, we're really, it's a week-long campaign to bring awareness to the 1.2 billion people living.
Thank you.
Yep, below the line. So that is defined by $1.50 a day. And you know, I think it's a really interesting way to raise money, to ask people to somewhat step into the shoes of the people who are they're actually raising money for. So it is quite a challenge.
Hugh, it's hard to imagine surviving on something like $1.50 a day. My coffee this morning was $2 and I gave a $1 tip. That's 2 days of someone. How do they go about doing this?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it is a huge challenge, and every year we've done it, you know, you have to gear up. What I like to do is I like to do it with a friend because then you get to pool your money together. And sometimes what we do, because it's $7.50 across the whole week, because it's a 5-day challenge from April 28th through to May 2nd. And what you do is you ration out that whole week. So you might buy some eggs because you can afford that for $7.50. You might buy some porridge for the morning, and that's about it. And you ration out across the whole week, and you think, well, what would it be like to live on $1.50 per day in all my food and drink? And the hardest thing, I think, is, you know, going without the things that you take for granted, like coffee or things like that, that you say, you know, you said your coffee was $2 coming into work, you know.
Sometimes my coffee's $3.75, depending on where I go.
Yeah, you're right. And that's part of the challenge. But I think this is why the empathy factor is so important, because it's actually an opportunity, as Bridget said, to step into the shoes. We're never really going to know what it's like to live in extreme poverty, but we can have a small taste, and in doing so, raise money for those who are in so much greater need than we'll ever experience, the 1.2 billion people on this planet who live in extreme poverty.
Bonnie, talk to me about your plans to live on $1.50 a day. How do you see yourself going about it?
Well, I'm actually on the challenge as we speak, so I'm on my second day today, and so far I've had a banana for my breakfast. And this is the third year I've done it, and I think every year I kind of find and work out some other way of planning better. I think the planning is the hardest part. It's kind of working out before you go and buy your food for the 5 days, how are you going to do it? I mean, every year I always do it when I spend my 5-day allowance on the first day and then live off that, because obviously it's much easier to buy in larger quantities. So yeah, I mean, I think, you know, you have to be sort of inventive, and you have to be patient with it, and you have to, you know, put the time into it. If you don't put the time into it, the challenge is much harder than.
Yeah, what happens if you break the challenge? Have you ever broken, you know, you're 5 days in or you're 3 days into the 5 days and you realize that you're just really hungry?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's the weirdest thing is it's not, I mean, because of the food you eat is more carbohydrate led, because that's the cheaper thing, unfortunately. It's not really the hunger thing. I think it's just that, it's that lack of choice that alienates you from so many normal, regular day activities that you're so used to doing, such as socializing with friends.
Right.
You can't suddenly be like, oh yeah, I'll come for a drink, or you can't even, and it's even hard just sitting there and drinking tap water next to people who are in an environment. So, I mean, it's lucky for us that we even have the, you know, that wealth of culture and different things that we can see around us that can bring kind of, it, you know, it can take us away from the challenge that we're doing. Whereas for other people, it's, you know, it surrounds them all the time. Whereas for us, we're lucky that we can go to our home, turn the TV on, and forget about the fact that we haven't eaten for a few hours.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. How does that work in regards to maybe other things that you're paying for that are not part of the challenge, like your cable bill or something like that? All these things that are just sort of part of your everyday life.
Yeah, we're not asking anyone to give up all that. You know, even medication that you might have to take on a daily basis, whether it's for, you know, high blood pressure or something like that. We're not asking people to do that. But certainly that's one of the things you think about is people who do live in extreme poverty may have to make a choice between, oh, my child is sick, and I have to feed my family. So you have to figure out what is the most important thing at that moment, and you may be using up your money for the week of food because your child is sick. You know, we don't have to necessarily make those choices on a daily basis, and certainly we're not asking people to do that on the challenge, but that's a real world decision that families have to make.
What do you think the hardest part will be?
Well, I've already done it for one day, and I just found myself constantly aware of how much I normally eat in a day and how I cannot eat at this particular moment. And I see my son, I was not forcing my son to be on this challenge with me, so I would make him breakfast and I'd be daydreaming about the meal, and I'd see what he wouldn't eat, and I'd be looking at the leftovers, and I was conscious nonstop about the choices I was having to make. Also going into the grocery store on how much I don't necessarily pay that much attention to what I'm spending at the grocery store. I found it's very easy to possibly make unhealthy choices on that budget. So trying to make the meals healthy as well as being on the challenge is a challenge in itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what do you hear is that usually the hardest part for people who try to do the challenge? When you get feedback, what do people say they had the most struggle with?
I think the people that give us feedback, they always say it's a lack of choice, as Bonnie said earlier. You know, you literally have to, when all your friends are going out to have a meal at night, you can't do that. You know, when all your friends are having a coffee, you have water. It's these sorts of things that really create the challenge. But I think also, as a byproduct, which we never expected, people come out the other end and they actually say, you know, I actually learned to waste a lot less. Mm-hmm. I don't waste much food anymore because they realize that they're so grateful for what they have. And I think that there's all these unexpected byproducts that happen above and beyond all the money that's raised. Like what was so awesome about last year is that, you know, we had 21,000 people around the world take part in this challenge, and they raised over $4.4 million for all of our charity partners, whether it's Opportunity International through to the World Food Program, USA through to Heifer. All these great charities were involved, and people were raising money for all of them. And I think that those were the obvious benefits, but the unexpected benefits were the fact that people were more conscious of the fact that they previously might have wasted food and now they don't anymore.
Is there an average amount of food that Americans spend in a day compared to the rest of the globe?
I actually don't have that data, but I'm...
Seems like it'd be more.
I mean, you can imagine that like the consumption levels globally, I mean, across the Western world are out of control. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Your goal is to end extreme poverty by 2030, right? What do you think it's going to take to get us there?
Well, I always like to think about it, I call it the 6 and the 3. Everyone needs to have access to food security and basic agriculture. You need education, particularly for girls. You need water and sanitation, healthcare, job creation, and the empowerment of women. They're the 6. But then you need to overcome 3 really big barriers. Firstly, access to capital, so ensuring that people get aid and good aid. Secondly, trade, so that trade is fair for those living in extreme poverty. And thirdly, that there's good governance so that you can actually combat corruption and ensure that people live in a stable environment so they can actually develop their own productive livelihoods. And so I think that's what it takes at a macro level. But what does it take for us every day? Well, we need to build a movement. And that's what Live Below the Line is all about. It's about challenging people around the world to step up and say, you know what, I can't do everything, but I can go without I can go on $1.50 per day in food for 5 days, raise money and start to build that movement at a grassroots level all across America and around the world.
How exactly do you raise money by living on $1.50 a day? Is it about exposure? Is it about people knowing about the work that you're doing?
You have like a donation page that's pretty similar to when you run a marathon and you set your thing up and you send the link over to your friends and just get them to donate. The website's set up very well with the GPP in the sense that you can have a picture and you can post blog, video posts on your kind of donation page. So whoever's donating can sort of follow your progress really. You set a goal, however much money you decide to raise that year, and maybe you get even further and maybe you don't. And you can also join in with teams, which is quite good. So say, even if you're in a class at university or an office, you could have the Huffington Post team and everyone together is all collectively going to build donations.
I want to move a little bit to your film and television work, you guys. Bonnie, J.K. Rowling is saying that she's going to be writing a Harry Potter spinoff. Do you know if you're going to have any involvement in that?
I think that's meant to be either like pre or it's going to be pre everything that's happened in
okay.
Harry Potter. So I won't even. My character wasn't even born.
Were you disappointed to find out that it was going to be a prequel rather than something that would continue the storyline that you're involved in?
No, not really. I mean, I think, our dedication to that, 10 years of that story and our involvement in that was more than I ever could have, wanted or asked for. So, I think we all took our characters to where they could be taken, and I think it's exciting for the next, story that she's going to tell and for those people that are going to be involved.
One last Harry Potter question for the HP obsessives out there is that J.K. Rowling said that, if she had to go back and do it again, she would have had Hermione marry Harry. What did you think about that when you heard that?
Well, I mean, to be honest, I would easily look back at something that I've made and have different thoughts, but I've always thought that Ginny would be quite a pretty independent woman on her own, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, I think she wrote that last epilogue chapter when she was writing like the first few books. So in order to find your way and write to that ending is a quite interesting way to write. So I guess on reflection.
And Bridget, you have a new movie coming out, right? It's called Small Time?
Small Time, yes.
Tell me about this movie.
It's a small movie written and directed by a gentleman named Joel Surnow, who is of the 24 series. And it's with Chris Maloney, and it's just a really fun, sweet, beautifully written script. So hopefully, I think it's coming out around April 18th. And
We actually have a clip of it. Let's take a quick look at Small Time.
Awesome.
I don't want to go to college. I want to work at the car lot. I want to be a salesman.
If you think that I'm going to let our son throw away his life to become a peddler,
well, it's not going to happen now.
I cannot tell you how disappointed I am.
Well, then don't.
Watch your mouth, son.
I'm not your son.
If he ends up like you, Al, I will hang myself. No offense.
Bridget, you are so humiliated that I just played that.
I don't like listening to my own voice.
It was great. It was amazing.
Yeah.
You were wonderful
The
in
funny
that
thing
clip.
about this film, it's shot as if it's, from the 70s, and I think I look much better in the 70s.
Really?
I think
You
I was
look
born
great right
during the
now.
wrong period of
Let's
time.
go
Yeah, I'm going to start dressing like that more often. I don't like hearing my own voice. It's very odd.
Do you do this on every show that you go on when they run a clip?
Freak out? Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. What about going to screenings of any of the films? Do you not go to
I
screenings?
plug
of your
my
films?
ears during all my parts. Yeah.
Bonnie, do you do the same thing?
No, she's more
yeah.
mature than I am.
I think it's a very bizarre experience. You can never get used to that, watching something back. Also, you think of all the day around that moment when you filmed that scene, I find. You're thinking what happened that day and what was going on and, they chose that take. There's a million one things.
Yeah, it's impossible to look at a film that you've been in and really view it with clear eyes and know if it's any good.
As an audience member, you're totally... you can have an opinion about a film that you've done, and there's the complete opposite from everyone sat around you. So
Yeah.
That you're watching and you're kind of like, oh, I'm just glad that we were able to get that shot in because we were losing sunlight and everyone was yelling at me.
yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah. So you were in Coyote Ugly, Bridget, which I'm a movie that I'm fascinated by, because it is It is one of the first movies that Hollywood was making about women going into the workforce, wanting to have lives, while at the same time it was kind of draped in sort of a man's
a
man's idea of a woman. How do you look back at that film?
I feel a little bit bad about that film because I think we're responsible for just every woman wearing really low-slung pants that maybe don't naturally fit well on people. And so I think we started a movement that maybe we should reconsider.
You want to reconsider that? Do you think Coyote Ugly 2 could be the reconsideration of that movement?
Coyote 2 will be high-waisted leather pants instead.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I thought about it as a women's movement into the workforce because it is dancing
just
on
made
a
that
bar.
up.
I know, I love that. I love that.
I wanted to give it some kind of
We
compliment.
have advanced more than that.
Yeah. I wanted to pay it some sort of tribute before I got you to trash it a little bit.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Well, I do what I can. Hugh, at this point, so many celebrities are doing the Live for $1.50 a day challenge. How are you getting them involved? Is it just word of mouth that they know this already, or do you seek people out?
Well, I mean, Bonnie's actually been working with us for the last 4 years now, ever since the Global Poverty Project first started in the UK, actually. And Bridget's been involved for 2 years now. She was actually involved with the Global Citizen Festival last year on the Great Lawn of Central Park. And so the thing I like to think of it is that to take a movement, you need everybody involved. And so it's not about me or us, it's about the collective, always working together. And so I think that's what makes Global Citizen and the work we do with Live Below the Line unique, in that every person who's involved is involved in an authentic way, and they're involved because they believe in it with all their heart and they want to take real action. So, celebrity or everyday person, everyone's involved, and that's what makes a movement so special.
Where are you seeing Live Below go this year in terms of the goals that you're setting and reaching? Sure.
So this year I want to have, it would be awesome just if we could have 25,000 people around the world participate and hit over the $5 million mark this year. That would be the goal. And so, I guess, wherever we go, we want to challenge people to get involved. And so we'd like to invite you actually to
Me?
Yes, you.
Guys, I'm flattered.
Would you do it with us?
When?
April 28th through to
April
May
28th.
2nd.
1 to 5 days.
You can choose for one day.
Yeah.
You can get all your friends involved here.
Well, you put me on the spot. I'm on live. Of course I'm going to do it now.
Yay!
I can't say no.
One day, come on.
So now we have to track this, and we have to make it a whole thing,
Yeah.
and I actually have to do it because I can do it.
You can do it for one day, and you can do it with all the other
Yeah.
people here at Huffington Post.
Okay, Frank, will you do it with me? Frank's going to do it with
John's
me.
going to do it.
John's going to do
Thanks,
it.
Frank. Thanks.
Okay, it looks like we're all going to do it. Guys, thank you so much for joining me and putting me on the spot, really. really putting me on
That's
the spot.
payback.
Yeah.
That's what I call payback.
I owe you like 3 more Coyote Ugly questions, to be perfectly honest with you. Guys, don't forget, Live Below the Line Week is April 28th through May 2nd. I'll be doing it. 2014, be sure to click on the links in our resource well below for more information about the campaign and how you can help. Stay with us. There's a lot more coming up on HuffPost Live.